The GFE is the good faith error rule, and it was released on January 15 of 2021. This is important because a lot of people are getting caught up on it, and they're thinking that this GFE rule is blocking us from forgiveness, and it's not. The GFE rule says that if you were miscalculated or overfunded, if there were mistakes on the part of the lender, being your bank, or the administrator, being the SBA, then the borrower has to repay, which makes total sense. If I should have only gotten $22,000 and I somehow calculated that I get $45,000, well, I should repay that part that I was not qualified for. And the banks and the SBA and everybody putting out these programs so quickly and trying to qualify so many businesses, there could have been mistakes made on their part, missing that somebody had not taken off deductions from the tax year before or something, right? But it doesn't apply to us because we weren't miscalculated or overfunded. What is blocking us is the omission of the word services in the SBA guidelines, FAQ number 15, which carries over to the interim rule, questions H and P. And we know because that's when the lender verbiage changed. That's when Bank of America stopped defining things. That's when they stopped telling us that independent contractors qualify. They never redefined terms. They had already set those terms out there saying that we qualified. So when you don't redefine them, they are still standing. Without saying like, hey, things may have changed. We don't know. We're not sure. Check our work. Which you could sort of say that was in the disclaimer saying read this for yourself, and I have, and I see that the interim rule where the omission of the word services is what is creating all of the blocking. So the GFE rule doesn't even apply to us. But even if it did apply to us, it wouldn't apply to us because when we look to the SBA for guidance on their program, we see in question number 17. Released 24 times. Question number 17 in every version of their FAQs on the program says that anything released after our date, any rules, laws, any changes that occur don't apply to us. So even if it applied to us, it wouldn't apply to us, right? But it doesn't apply to us because that's not our problem. We weren't miscalculated. We weren't overfunded. There were no mistakes made in those calculations. What we are talking about is the qualification of independent contractors. And that's not a miscalculation. That is a misreading. That is somebody saying, I would like to interpret that the word full-time equivalent employees as independent contractors in a business should be inserted into that sentence, but it's not. As much as I would like to insert the word services in those sentences, I cannot. I can't and the lender can't. It literally says nothing. That is our issue because that sentence doesn't say anything. And that is the one that is getting thrown at us time and time again. That is what the lender is saying. Hey, we're just going by what the SBA says. It's their guidelines, That is what Bank of America is saying they are looking at, right? They are looking at the SBA guidelines, which told the interim rule what to say. And what it said was, independent contractors this way or this way, but we're not telling you which, right? We're not going to tell you in H&P, in the interim rule H&P, we're not going to tell you if we mean services or full-time equivalent employees. So the GFE rule, while we went to Washington and we had, Houlihan introduced us and had a press conference on the lawn and had this, whole thing about rescinding the GFE rule or reforming PPP rules. We don't need reform. We just need lenders and the SBA to uphold what the law already says. We don't need to reform what already laid out as qualifications. It is simply that they are not upholding everywhere in the law where it does say what it wants to say. And they're looking at these two sentences which says neither. So we don't need reform. We don't need any sort of additional funding. It is simply just uphold the law that is already there.